Welcome, plant junkies, yet to another video. My name is Jody from plantjunkiecreations.com. And today, this video is specifically about Hoya compacta, also known as the Hindu rope. Today, I'm going to talk about the basics of caretaking for these plants, and then towards the end I'm going to talk about a healthy plant versus an unhealthy plant and some tips, so stay tuned for that. There are a variety of Hoya compactas, most commonly known what I call plain Jane green. I named her Jane, with just the green foliage. That's the most common Hoya compacta. Then you've got the variegated version, where the variegation is along the outer edge, versus the monolau Hoya compacta, where the variegation is on the inside. So these plants, when people purchase them, they're thinking they're going to explode with these long trailing vines, right? Of this beautiful, wrinkled, curled up foliage. Well, let me tell you that they are slow growers at first, but once they become accustomed to their pot and their home, they'll start putting off new growth. And that's when you know you've got a healthy plant also. So given the right condition, these plants will put off new growth and just keep on growing. So you just got to be patient at first and let it get established in its pot, and then it'll start growing for you. Another thing about the Hoya compacta, most Hoyas are like this, where they like to be root bound. So I suggest it's best to start small. I sell these little 2-inch pots at my shop, so you can go ahead and check that out. And when you're transplanting, because eventually this pot won't support the pot won't support this plant. It's going to eventually start trailing down, and so keep it root bound for as long as you can. But when it starts getting top heavy and you're like noticing that it's easily to tip over, that's when you know to transplant. Or you could look at the bottom hole here, and if you start seeing a bunch of roots, it's definitely acclimated to your pot. I will use two types of pots. So when you're transplanting, these roots don't like being disturbed. It'll shock the plant, which means it'll stunt your plant growth and all that jazz. So for terracotta example, I would soak this pot in water, get a little tool, poke it in there, just make sure no roots have adhered to the terracotta, and then put your hand over it, dump it out. It should come right out. With plastic, you can do wet or dry. Just put your hand on top, dump it out. Try not to break up any of the medium, the roots. Do not disturb the root system as much as you can. And then go ahead and combine it like I have with this one. 1, 2, 3, right? So now you know about that. Now, from my experience with all these plants, they like bright light. I think they can tolerate direct light, but there are variables to that, and I'll explain that in a second. The more light you give to any of your variegated versions, you will see pink. Pink. There's a little bit more pink, but it's hard for the camera to see some of these. Let's see if my Monolao has any. And given more light for these variegated versions will promote also more white. So I suggest giving it more light. So I want to show you where I place these in my plant room. I currently have an east window, a south window, and a southwest window behind you. So I'm going to take you with me to show you where I placed these and where I had some of them placed. Okay, so originally I had Jane in this pot, and if you're looking at my southwest window, I have put what you call a window sheen here to emit some of those rays in the dark, or the bright heat and sunlight. I'm trying to not give it so much. So when you have a Hoya compacta, you want it backed away, probably higher. But currently what I have here is a different Hoya. I'll explain what I did with Jane because I'm selling her at my shop, so I have her in a specific home. And then the other ones, the variegated versions, I put here. So it's away from the direct light. It could use more light. Variegated, any lighter plant can withstand more light versus the darker ones, if that makes any sense. And with this, I wish it was a 3-tier so I could put the Jane up there, but that's not the case. So I'm going to take you back. Excuse me, I'm trying to get you adjusted in my stand. Alrighty, hello. Okay, so in the winter with these plants, I provide LED lights. But they're little, with these plants, with the LED lights, like, they like to have, I believe, a dormant period, all plants, because that's where they like store their nutrients to blossom for the next season. So my suggestion, if you use LED lights like I do in the winter, is mimic your seasons. So come winter, when the sun is setting, that's when I would turn my LED light off. When the sun is rising, I would turn on my lights. So it's getting a shorter amount, but it's getting the best light of your season, I guess, right? Another tip you can do is with some of these lights, they give you an option to adjust the settings. So I would probably do 1 or 2 clicks and lower some of that light so it's not full on bright, because when you're providing that light, you're promoting it to grow, right? But you don't want it to grow too much because you want it to conserve its energy to blossom for next season. Okay, I think I've gone over everything with lights. Okay, the soil composition for the Hoya compacta, I use what I call a Hoya chunky mix, which consists of cocoa or coconut husk, cocoa core, which is kind of the same thing, but just finer. It doesn't retain water for too long. It helps with that drainage. They like a well-draining chunky mix. I'll also use what you call sphagnum moss. I like to use charcoal, which provides nitrogen, also helps with the drainage, and so it doesn't get too waterlogged. Perlite, I like to use worm casting to provide, because these ingredients don't have a lot of nutrients in them. So by adding the charcoal also helps, but the worm casting, not too much, but adds a little bit of the nutrients it may need. Hoyas don't need a lot of fertilizer. I will explain that a little bit later. So coconut husk, cocoa core, perlite, sphagnum moss, a little bit of peat moss, and worm casting. I believe that's everything that I put in these. I also sell the Hoya Chunky Mix at my shop if you're interested. The way that I divided them was into a 3-inch pot, a 4-inch pot, a 5-inch pot. So if you're going bigger, like 6, which you really would have to have a large plant to fill that pot, you can purchase more. And also you'll get like an idea of the composition ratio, so you can purchase your own. So there we go. Now, when to water. Okay, the Hoyas and the Hoya Compacta can be a little tricky for beginners, but the basic rule is for most plants, and for this Hoya Compacta, is once a week. I recommend 7 to 10 days. If you're using this chunky mix, there is a huge difference between when you first freshly water opposed to when a plant is thirsty. It'll be either really light or really heavy. And you will get to know that when you experience, when you're caretaking your plant, you'll be able to lift that pot and know. And that's like what I really use. Another reason why I like my chunky mix too is you're able to see that sphagnum moss, and you'll be able to see if it's dry as well. Another cue to water is when I go around and I'm looking at my plants. There's a lot of peperomias are like this, succulents and such, like the string of pearls. When I go around to check my plants, I will grab like the first leaf and kind of pinch it. I'll go to like the third leaf, kind of pinch it. And then I'll go to the last leaf and I'll kind of pinch it. If it's hard and sturdy, it's healthy, number one. But it doesn't need to be watered. Absolutely do not water. Let me go back. My suggestion from watering from 7 to 10 days, it's either that or I forgot what I was just going to say. Or when your pot's light, I can't remember. Anyways, when you're pinching these, if it becomes tender. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. Okay, so you can see if your pot is heavy. You can check the sphagnum moss up top, but when you're doing that also, you want to look at the bottom and you want to see if there's any moisture. So do not water if you see any moisture. So it likes to dry out in between waterings. Just do that, trust me. Don't go too long. They are drought tolerant. And when I say that, if you have a leaf that is becoming a little shriveled or develops wrinkles, it's kind of hard to see because most of these have just been watered, but I do have one leaf here, meaning this probably doesn't have enough roots, so it's striving. Most plants like to strive, but I'm so good at what I do and paying attention that I will make sure that this one gets specifically I'll spritz because they like humidity. And when you also do that, you promote aerial roots, which help make it easier to propagate. Let's see if there's a better plant. I don't see one right now, but if you look, you see the aerial root right there? That means you have humidity, and that'll, if you cut below that, you'll be able to propagate. But I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But yeah, spritzing, humidity, they like it. Succulents, not so much, but Hoyas, they come from the tropics, and they definitely like their humidity. Watering. So if it's tender and light to the touch, or soft to the touch, especially at the first leaf, that's your cue to water. If it is wrinkly like that, that means it is screaming at you, water me, water me. So what I'll do is I water every 7 to 10 days. Sometimes I push it out to that 10th day, and I thoroughly water it. I never let it sit in water because the roots will rot for you. So with plastic, you can use different types of plastic. You can use that other like the solid container, but with my Hoyas, I really like to see I like to use the transparent pots because you can see the roots developing to tell you the cue to transplant, and it helps with the aeration. So when you're watering, what I'll do is I love these like kitchen mixing bowls. They're easy to clean out, but I have a few of them, and I place it in here and I water till it's heavy. And sometimes the first round doesn't soak all of it, so I put it in another pot and I drip all around it, so all of it's getting water. And when you look at this pot, you'll be able to see, I just watered these, the difference between the dark medium versus like the light medium. So I like to give it a good thorough watering. That's the best for these Hoya compactas. That's from my experience. Now with terracotta, it's different because with terracotta, it's porous. And so I'm thinking about making a video maybe after this about different pots and watering. But what I'm trying to say is with terracotta, you don't have to water as much. With terracotta, you have to water more. With plastic, you don't have to frequently water. The smaller your pot is, the more watering you will have to do. So either way, I just do all of these, the ones I've shown you, once a week. 10 days or so. But you want to make sure it is dry, or otherwise you will kill your plants, and it'll be more prone to pests and bacteria like mealybugs or root rot, right? Okay, so that is the watering. Which pot to use, I just kind of went over that. I like to start small for my propagations and get a bunch of those going. I like to use the terracotta as well, because if you tend to overwater, terracotta absorbs that moisture, so it's just more controlled. And then once you start seeing it being filled with roots or whatnot, then I put it into a 4-inch pot. Some tips. How to tell a healthy plant from an unhealthy plant. An unhealthy plant will be all wrinkly. You will see some of your leaves dropping. You'll see the wrinkleness in your leaves, and you might even see mealybugs, because mealybugs and fungus gnats are attracted to death, decay, composition. So when you see that, that's a telltale sign you have an unhealthy plant and you need to treat it. Before I get more into, okay, never mind. Healthy plants. Healthy plants, you will start seeing new growth all over. You'll see a new leaf spiking where you didn't even think it would come out. If you also trim your plants, it encourages more branches to come out. It'll stop the growth there and encourage another branch and maybe another branch. So I don't know. Most people like the look of the long, right? I do, and that's where I'm working towards with these, because I want these long vines with these beautiful blossoms. A healthy plant will also be very rich in color. It will be very hard to the touch. You just definitely know from an unhealthy plant to a healthy plant. I don't know if I just said that right. I'm just showing you the pink there in that new leaf. It is just so adorable. I wish I could show you better. So this is a really healthy cutting that is rooted. It's really hard to the touch. This is hard to the touch, just not as hard, but I can tell it's not as healthy because it has those wrinkles in it. It's just going to need a little bit of nurture and care. But I do notice in this plant, it is developing a new leaf. I don't know if you can see. I don't know. Hopefully you can see. Right there. It's really tiny. They're just the cutest little things. Okay, fertilizing. Like I said, it doesn't really need much fertilizer. A little bit goes a long ways with these, and always dilute it by half. What I specifically use is Gringo Rasta Rise Up. This comes in a 4 ounce or an 8 ounce, something like that, 12 ounce or, 4 ounce or 8 ounce. This is 8 ounce. It's kind of pricey, but this is great because you can use it for propagations. You can also it comes with a scoop. You can put the scoop in a gallon of water, and you can water it, and it also gives it's like a fertilizer and a root promoter. So that's like my go-to. But with like my succulents, a lot of my Hoyas, sometimes I rotate my fertilizer with just like an orchid mix. At Lowe's they sell the spray. This is just the fluid, so this lasts a lot longer. And like with this, you have fertilizers, if you're familiar with them, can get like dirty and all over you. Like when you're trying to pour it into your gallon, it just ends up getting all over, and it's just like this weird smell. But with this one, I like because it has a cup and you just pour it in here. Like it's just so easy, and then pour it. You just fill half a cup of this. So this is Orchid Blossom Bloomer. Really great for Hoyas to bloom. You fertilize during the growing season, so it's important to let your plants rest during the winter, right? Dilute it by half. You just even put like a quarter. It's better to do not enough than too much, because once you do too much, the damage has been done. Okay. When you have an unhealthy plant, like say you overwatered, Um, I don't know, like sometimes you might bring home another plant and it has mealybugs, and you don't follow the protocol of isolating it for a week. Let's just say your Hoya has been attacked by mealybugs. You want to isolate it first off. Rinse off all your mealybugs. Take a little toothpick or sharp material and pick them off. Take the time, because you spent the money on that plant, and plants love to thrive. So if you can save it, save it. It is so worth it. These Hoyas are beautiful. And then there's other options. Like I think I have another video. No, I don't. It's on fungus gnats and how to keep them at bay. But I use this little spray bottle. This was just like a face tonic spray bottle. It's perfect because it's just like a little 4-ounce, I think it's 4 ounces, glass bottle. And I went out and bought neem oil. And so I put a little bit of neem oil in there, like a half a teaspoon. I put like 1 drop of soap. I always add baking soda because I use this for all my plants, this combo, and I use warm water and fill it up. Shake it up every time you use it. Spray your plants thoroughly. Keep it out away from the light, because specifically with neem oil, if you spray it, gets on the foliage and you put light, it'll bleach those little spots on there, and it's not very pretty. But what this does is it gets rid of mealybugs. It also gets rid of spider mites. I'm not saying that I have all these, but from time to time when I'm looking at my plants, some plants like alocasias, they're prone to spider mites, and you'll start noticing. And when you notice it, spray it right away. You don't want it to develop and take over. So that's what I do. I'll spray it like once a week, and then for like 2 weeks. And then like as a routine, when you're dusting your leaves and taking care of your plants, once a month. It's very, very important to, when you're thoroughly watering, just take a look at your plants. So there's that spray it, get rid of the mealybugs, right? These bugs are attracted to death, decomposing matter. So what I would do is I would take away some of your leaves that are like mushy, that look like they're not going to be salvageable. Take them off so they're not getting to that. Another thing with mealybugs is they actually love new growth. And so you'll want to like make sure they're not in there in the cracks and crevices. And it's just better to keep with the Hoya compacta, to pay attention before it gets worse, because as you can tell, it is very, very compact, right? Hoya compacta. And you like lift up the leaves like these. When you have a healthy plant, these leaves are really on this stem. With an unhealthy plant, it's very, very, very flexible. So let me tell you a story. My very first Hoya compacta I aced it. I nailed it. I had it in that southwest window without that sheen, and I skipped on watering. I just forgot about it or something. It just wasn't too appealing. I wasn't super excited about this plant at first. These were together, and there was more in a bigger pot. That's how I purchased it. And with the heat coming at it and forgetting to water it, it got shriveled and it started losing its leaves. I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I need to fix this. I need to water it. I need to get it back on its schedule. I noticed mealybugs. And so I took it out and I sprayed it. And it just wasn't doing good in this large pot. So I started separating them and propagating what was healthy. I got rid of most of the plant and just kept what was healthy and salvageable. And like I said, like this is a great example of one to propagate. So you can cut right here, stick this in water. I'd add a rooting hormone to your water. That Gringo Rasta is like so perfect. Trust me, it's worth the money. A little bit goes a long ways. Cut it, stick it in water. 2 to 3 weeks, you will have roots. I would transplant your plant when the roots reach like a half an inch to an inch, no longer. I mean, it's okay, but I wouldn't go much longer. So I would cut here, here, which would promote new growth coming out of here, or it might even sprout a new growth here and eventually over time here. But another thing why I haven't cut this is I noticed that these Hoya compactas, they will actually grow new leaves at these nodes. So I'm just leaving it and experimenting with it. Another tip for when you're propagating or when you have a sick plant and you're trying to salvage those cuttings is create a greenhouse. You'll want to air out your greenhouse. I'd say like a half hour, an hour once a week. I like to do it like a half hour every 3 days or so. You want that humidity pretty high so it can develop those roots. I often spritz it opposed to watering. I also put it in the terracotta inside that greenhouse. You will most likely save your plant if you do that. Yeah, so you could either put it in water or you can put it in that chunky mix that I have. It's such a savior for propagation. It's just like perfect for these Hoyas. Put it in a little tiny terracotta. You can buy a plant for me, take out that plant, and use the terracotta. Yeah. So you can put it in that terracotta in the greenhouse. It'll promote root growth. So if you guys have any questions, like I said, I am on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. I have my little online shop there. You can message me there. If you have any other like video suggestions, please message me because I am such a plant nerd. I'm always being creative, pushing my plants to grow, to thrive, just experimenting. It's all very, very fun to see like the new growth and to succeed. So anyways, if you like this video, please subscribe, support me, and like, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Thanks, guys.